At least have enough dignity to leave quietly, my mother said, blocking the ballroom doors with one hand. Tonight is for people who actually belong to this family. Behind her, 70 guests were eating a dinner that had cost me $31,780. My father was wearing the navy suit I had bought him. My younger brother, Logan, was standing beside the stage with a ceremonial golden key in his hand. His wife, Kayla, sat in my assigned chair wearing our grandmother's emerald ring, the ring my mother had promised would one day be mine. And behind them stood a 6-foot photograph of Cedar Ridge, the $1.26 million house my parents planned to announce as Logan's inheritance. There was only one problem. The house belonged to me. And while my family was publicly erasing me from their lives, a forged document bearing my signature was already being prepared to sell that house on Monday morning. My name is Natalie Reed. I was 36 years old and I worked as a commercial property claims manager in Richmond, Virginia. I spent my days studying contracts, tracing suspicious payments, and noticing when paperwork did not match the story people were telling. Unfortunately, I had spent years refusing to use those same instincts on my own family. My parents, Thomas and Mary Ann Reed, were celebrating their 45th wedding anniversary at the Jefferson Glass House, an expensive venue overlooking the James River. My mother had selected the flowers, the menu, the string quartet, the imported champagne, and even the gold lettering on the place cards. I had paid for every one of those details. 3 weeks earlier, Logan had asked me for $200,000 to save his failing restaurant company. He had unpaid vendors, tax notices, and no reliable accounting records. I offered to pay for an independent accountant and help him negotiate with his creditors. Logan did not want help. He wanted money with no questions attached. When I refused, my mother called me selfish. My father said I had forgotten what family meant. Kayla sent me a message saying successful people should lift everyone else with them. I still paid for the anniversary party because the contracts had already been signed, and because some part of me continued to believe that generosity could repair what respect had never built. That belief ended at the ballroom door. "You asked me to organize this," I said. "We asked you to help," my mother replied. "That did not give you the right to force yourself into every family moment." My father stood several feet behind her, staring at the carpet. He always did that when my mother became cruel. Looking away allowed him to pretend later that he had not participated. Logan did not look away. He raised the golden key slightly and smiled. A security manager approached with a tablet held against his chest. "Ms. Reed, I'm sorry," he said. "The event host removed your name from the guest list this afternoon." The event host. My signature was on the venue contract. My card had paid the deposit, the catering balance, the musicians, and the floral invoice. I looked beyond my mother at the photograph of Cedar Ridge. Beneath it, gold letters read, "A legacy for the next generation." That was when I understood the purpose of the evening. They were not simply excluding me. They were planning to give my property to Logan in front of 70 witnesses, hoping public humiliation would make me too embarrassed to contradict them. 5 years earlier, my father's printing business had collapsed after he guaranteed a loan for a partner whose construction project failed. My parents lost most of their retirement savings. Tax liens were filed. Their old house entered foreclosure. Logan suddenly became too overwhelmed to answer their calls. I paid the tax liens. I negotiated with the bank. Then I purchased Cedar Ridge in my own name for $1.26 million and gave my parents a written residential use agreement. They could live there without paying rent as long as they covered utilities, maintained the property, did not rent any part of it, and never attempted to borrow against, transfer, or alter ownership without my written permission. At closing, my mother hugged me and whispered, "You saved this family." By the following Christmas, she was telling neighbors that my father had purchased the property after a brilliant financial recovery. I let her tell the lie. I told myself I did not need credit from people I loved. What I did not understand was that every lie I allowed became permission for a larger one. I opened the venue email on my phone and asked the manager to close the open bar and overtime authorization attached to my card. I made it clear that all contracted charges through that evening would still be honored, but any additional champagne, extended service, or damage deposit would require a new payment method from the named host. My mother's expression changed for the first time. "What are you doing? Separating my bill from your celebration? You would humiliate your father in front of everyone?" I looked at him. He still would not meet my eyes. I did not remove him from the dinner he helped plan. Her mouth tightened. "This is exactly why Logan deserves the house. He understands loyalty. The house is not yours to give." For 1 second, no one moved. Then my mother stepped closer. "Do not make threats you will regret." "I'm not threatening you," I said. "I'm correcting the story." She grabbed my wrist. "You will fix this right now." I looked down at her hand until she released me. No. That word felt unfamiliar in my mouth. And clean. I left the venue at 8:23 p.m. My phone began ringing before I reached the parking lot. Logan called twice. My father called once. My mother sent 4 messages. The last one said, "You have always confused money with love." I was halfway to my car when another notification appeared. It was from the county's Property Fraud Alert System, a service I had registered for when I purchased Cedar Ridge. A document claiming authority over my property had been submitted for verification. The document type was listed as power of attorney. I had never given anyone power of attorney. The anniversary dinner was not the betrayal. It was the distraction. I drove directly to Cedar Ridge. I wanted the original occupancy agreement, my grandmother's letters, and the wooden box containing my childhood photographs. I also wanted to see whether anyone had entered my office. The front gate opened with my code. My key did not fit the house lock. They had changed it. A light came on next door. Leonard Shaw, my parents' neighbor, walked across the wet grass carrying an umbrella. "Natalie, is something wrong? Did anyone come to the house this week?" He hesitated. "An appraiser was here Tuesday, then a woman from a title company came yesterday. Kayla told me your parents were refinancing." My stomach tightened. "They cannot refinance this property." Leonard disappeared into his house and returned with a business card. "The title woman dropped this near the driveway. I meant to give it to your father." The card belonged to Dominion Title Services. At the bottom, someone had written, "Read closing, Monday, 9 a.m. At 7:40 the next morning, I was sitting in the office of my attorney, Mark Ellis. Mark had handled the Cedar Ridge purchase and drafted my parents' occupancy agreement. By 9:15, he had contacted Dominion Title's fraud department and obtained a copy of the pending closing file. He placed the first document in front of me. It was a durable power of attorney, supposedly authorizing my father to sell Cedar Ridge, sign deeds in my name, direct the proceeds, and make decisions without notifying me. My signature appeared on the final page. It looked almost perfect. Almost. But I had not signed it. Beneath the signature was a notary seal belonging to Kayla Reed. My brother's wife had authenticated a document she knew I had never signed. Mark placed a second document beside it, a purchase agreement for Cedar Ridge. Sale price, $1.4 million. Sellers, $0.4 million. Seller's representative, Thomas Reed, acting under my forged power of attorney. Buyer, Victor Hale. Victor was my father's former business partner, the same man whose failed construction deal had helped bankrupt my parents 5 years earlier. The buyer has already placed a $50,000 deposit into escrow, Mark said. That made the transaction look legitimate enough to keep moving. Where would the sale proceeds supposed to go? I asked. He turned over the wire instruction page. The destination account belonged to an LLC controlled by Logan, the restaurant company I had refused to rescue. They had not accepted my answer. They had forged a new one. Mark immediately sent written fraud notices to Dominion Title, the county recorder, the lender, and the buyer's attorney. He obtained an emergency hold on the closing and prepared a request for an injunction. I gave a statement to Detective Rosa Bennett and provided the purchase records, occupancy agreement, mortgage statements, tax payments, insurance records, emails, and family messages connected to the property. Then Mark served my parents with formal notice terminating their right to occupy Cedar Ridge. The agreement gave them 45 days to leave after a serious breach. They had changed the locks, allowed an unauthorized appraisal, and attempted to sell a house they did not own. At 6:12 that evening, my father called for the 28th time. I answered. "You went to the police?" he shouted. "You forged my signature." "It was paperwork. We were going to explain." "You scheduled a closing." "It is our home." "Then show me your deed." The line went silent. My mother took the phone from him. "You are destroying your father over a misunderstanding." "A forged power of attorney and a $50,000 escrow deposit are not a misunderstanding." "We raised you," she snapped. "We gave you everything." "Name one mortgage payment you made on Cedar Ridge." She said nothing. "I paid the down payment, mortgage, taxes, insurance, roof replacement, pool repairs, and landscaping. I also paid for the party where you told me I did not belong to the family." "Money does not make you family." "I know. You made that very clear." Her voice softened suddenly. That frightened me more than the shouting. "We were emotional, Natalie. Your father only wanted Logan to feel supported." "You ordered a ceremonial key. You invited an appraiser. You prepared forged documents." Which part was emotional? "We can undo all of this. You can cooperate with the investigation, return every dollar connected to the transaction, and move out by the deadline." She inhaled sharply. "You would put your own parents on the street?" "You were giving my house to Logan. He can take care of you." Their answer was silence. 2 days later, my mother posted a photograph of herself crying on the front steps of Cedar Ridge. Her caption claimed that her wealthy daughter was evicting 2 elderly parents from the home they had spent their lives building. Relatives began calling before breakfast. Aunt Susan called me heartless. A cousin I had not seen since college said I cared more about property than blood. Even my parents' pastor sent me a message about forgiveness. I did not argue with any of them. Mark released one factual statement with my approval. It included the public deed, the occupancy agreement, and confirmation that an attempted sale involving allegedly forged documents was under investigation. The statement did not insult my parents. It did not need to. The records showed that I had purchased the house and paid every major expense. My mother deleted her post within an hour. But she did not stop. 1 week later, the security system alerted me that 16 guests had entered Cedar Ridge within 20 minutes. My parents had organized a family intervention inside my house. The entry camera showed relatives carrying casseroles and folding chairs. Logan arrived last and parked in the space beside the garage as if he already owned it. The house had an intercom connected to the security system. Its use was disclosed in the occupancy agreement. I activated it. My voice filled the foyer and living room. "This is Natalie. You are inside property involved in an active fraud investigation. Everyone who does not legally reside there must leave." The room went silent. My mother looked toward the ceiling. Natalie, we are trying to save this family. No, you are trying to create another audience. Logan stood from the couch. She already owns an apartment and has a good job, he said. She does not need everything. You have 37 days remaining, I replied. All visitors need to leave now. The relatives were gone in less than 5 minutes. Logan came to my apartment that night. He did not ask whether I was all right. He demanded that I withdraw the complaint against Kayla. She could lose her notary commission, he said. She authenticated my forged signature. Mom told us you had agreed. Then why did Kayla never call me? His jaw tightened. We thought the house would stay in the family. I was family until I refused to give you $200,000. You are being dramatic. I opened the audio recording I had made at the ballroom door. My mother's voice filled the room. Tonight is for people who actually belong to this family. I stopped the recording. That is the family you chose, Logan. Go support them. We do not have space. You plan to move into my house. That is different. Everything is different when I'm paying. He had no answer for that. On the 30th day, my father called again. This time he was crying. Logan is gone, he whispered. He said Logan and Kayla had emptied their business account, packed 2 suitcases, and driven to Florida. They called it a vacation, but they were no longer answering my parents' calls. We have nowhere to go, Dad said. You had a month to make arrangements. We thought you would calm down. You thought guilt would work. Natalie, please. You are our daughter. In the background, my mother shouted, Do not tell her about the second account! I sat upright. What second account? My father hung up. 10 days later, after the court approved limited financial discovery and the bank responded to a subpoena, Mark called me into his office. A forensic accountant sat beside him with 3 years of guest house leases and deposit records. My parents had secretly rented the guest house behind Cedar Ridge for $4,900 a month. They had collected $176,400 in gross rent. Not $1 had been reported to me. Not one lease had been authorized. The money had gone into an account I had never seen. After withdrawals and expenses, the account held a little over $94,000. But that was not why Mark closed the office door. He pushed a bank statement across the table. 2 days before the anniversary, my parents had wired $82,000 from that secret account to Victor Hale. The following day, Victor placed $50,000 into the title company's escrow account as the supposed buyer's deposit. The remaining $32,000 was his advance payment for participating in the scheme. He had been promised another $38,000 after closing. The buyer's deposit had been funded with money stolen from my property. There had never been a real buyer. There had only been a performance designed to make the sale look too far advanced to stop. Once the house transferred, the net proceeds were supposed to be wired to Logan's LLC. Victor would receive his remaining fee. My parents would keep living at Cedar Ridge, and I would be told that fighting them would destroy the family. They were not merely trying to sell the house, Mark said. They built a fake transaction around it. That was the moment I stopped wondering whether they had panicked. Panic is messy. This had spreadsheets, appointments, forged signatures, an appraiser, a notary, an escrow deposit, and a public announcement timed to shame me into silence. This was a plan. At the emergency hearing, the judge froze the transaction, prohibited anyone from using the forged power of attorney, and ordered all parties to preserve their phones, emails, and financial records. My mother wore the same silver dress she had worn to the anniversary. She sat beside my father with both hands folded over her purse, looking at me as if I had dragged her there out of spite. Their attorney argued that Cedar Ridge had always been intended as a family gift. Mark placed the deed, mortgage statements, tax records, insurance policies, and occupancy agreement before the judge. Then he presented a message my mother had sent me 5 years earlier. Do not transfer the house to us. Your father's creditors may still come after him. Let it remain legally yours. The judge read it twice. My mother shifted in her chair. That was only for protection, she said. Natalie knew the house belonged to us emotionally. The judge looked over her glasses. Courts determine ownership from law and evidence, Mrs. Reed, not emotional ownership. Over the next 2 months, Detective Bennett recovered messages from the family group chat. My mother had sent Kayla a photograph of an old insurance form bearing my signature. Use this one as the sample, she wrote. Kayla replied, I can copy it, but Natalie cannot be anywhere near the closing office. Logan wrote, after the anniversary, she will be too embarrassed to fight us in public. My father added only one sentence. Make sure the title company calls my number, not hers. That line hurt more than the others. My father had not simply failed to stop them. He had helped design the silence around me. Victor eventually agreed to cooperate. He admitted that my father had offered him $70,000 to pose as the buyer and create a believable paper trail. He also admitted that my parents planned to tell relatives I had promised them the house and changed my mind out of jealousy toward Logan. At the later civil hearing, my father finally said, we were desperate. No, I replied. You were confident. Everyone turned toward me. You believed I would pay for the party, accept the humiliation, discover the fraud, and then clean up the damage quietly. You did not think I would defend myself. My mother's face hardened. You are enjoying this. I'm ending it. The court confirmed that I was the sole legal owner of Cedar Ridge, declared the power of attorney invalid, and ordered my parents to vacate under the terminated occupancy agreement. They were also ordered to repay the unauthorized rental income, minus only documented guesthouse expenses. The criminal case continued separately. Kayla surrendered her notary commission and later accepted a plea agreement involving probation, restitution, and community service. Logan pleaded to conspiracy and attempted fraud. Victor repaid the false deposit and testified for the prosecution. My parents avoided jail after accepting responsibility, paying restitution from the secret account, and agreeing to a substantial civil settlement. Their legal fees consumed most of what remained. They received 10 final days to remove their belongings. I returned on the 9th day with Mark and a locksmith. Boxes filled the hallway. The family photographs had been removed, leaving pale rectangles on the walls. The golden key from the anniversary lay on the kitchen island beside a stack of unopened mail. My mother sat beneath the pendant lights I had paid to install. Are you satisfied? She asked. No. You won everything. This was never something I wanted to win. My father carried a cardboard box from the office. He looked smaller than I remembered. We found an apartment, he said. 2 bedrooms near Matthews. You can afford it once the settlement payments are arranged. My mother laughed bitterly. You know every number, don't you? I had to. None of you ever told me the truth. She stood and walked toward the refrigerator. One anniversary photograph remained beneath a magnet. My parents, Logan, and Kayla were smiling around the cake. The photograph had been cut along one side. That was where I had been standing before my mother removed me from it. Families should not keep records against one another, she said. Families should not make records necessary. For once, she had no answer. My father placed the old brass house key on the counter. I never meant for you to stop loving us. You watched her exclude me from a party I paid for. I thought she was angry. You helped prepare the announcement. His shoulders dropped. That was the first completely honest answer he gave me without speaking. My mother paused at the front door. One day, you will understand that property cannot keep you from being alone. I picked up the ceremonial golden key Logan had held on stage. I was alone every time you called, only because a payment was due. She left without saying goodbye. A month later, I sold Cedar Ridge for $1.38 million. After paying the remaining mortgage, legal costs, and transaction expenses, I invested part of the proceeds in a 12-unit apartment building. 2 units became transitional housing for young adults who had been rejected by their families. The housing was not free forever. It was simply safe long enough for someone to find work, save a deposit, and understand that needing help did not make them someone else's property. 6 months later, my father called. Logan had stopped speaking to them. Kayla had filed for divorce. My mother rarely left their apartment. "We want to start over," he said. "Why?" "Because you are our daughter." At the anniversary, I was not. "We made a terrible mistake." "No, a mistake happens once. You forged my signature, created a false sale, hid rental income, changed my locks, and planned a public lie. Those were decisions." He began to cry. There was a time when that sound would have made me reach for my checkbook. But remorse says, "I hurt you." Consequences say, "I am hurting now." "I do not wish you harm," I told him, "but I will never finance your choices again." "Natalie, please. You asked for a family without me. I am respecting your decision." Then I ended the call. Maybe I will forgive them one day. But forgiveness does not require returning the keys. It does not require another payment, another rescue, or another seat at a table where love depends on what I can provide. My parents believed silence meant weakness. They learned that truth does not need to shout when the deed, bank records, messages, and signatures are already on the table. They did not lose Cedar Ridge because I was cruel. They lost it because generosity is not ownership, blood is not permission, and being family never gives anyone the right to erase your name. Tell me in the comments what you would have done in Natalie's place. Share this story with someone who needs stronger boundaries, and subscribe for more stories about betrayal, truth, and the kind of karma that arrives with receipts.